Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. How are you today? Today, we are rounding up our session on, our season on not-for-profits for this time on Unplugged. And we couldn't think of anyone better than to round it up than my friend and my aburo, as we call it in this part of the world. You know, my younger sister, my friend, and also my colleague, yes, in another not-for-profit, Osayi Alile. You know, she's also mother to somebody I'm going to take over as my godchild very soon. She doesn't know, so this is news to her. You know. Osayi, you're welcome. A lot of people have been looking forward to.
So much.
They've been really looking forward to this session with you. I don't know if you know it, but you know, you have a kind of rock star following, you know. Everyone I said, oh, we're going to have Osayi on, they said, oh my goodness, I have to watch, you know, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you guys, for those of you who don't know about Osayi, you know, what I tell everybody, you know, Google her. Google her, and when you Google her, also Google Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. That's ACT Foundation, Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. But Google Osayi and you'll get to find out a lot more about her, you know. But I'll tell you in maybe just 3 paragraphs, which really won't do much justice to who she is and what she's done. I'll just tell you briefly what she is. Osayi Alile is a quintessential leader with over 20 years experience in the small and medium enterprise sector in diverse areas from international development, business and philanthropic management, fundraising and sustainability. She is the founding curator of the Global Shapers Forum Nigeria and currently the Chief Executive Officer at ACT Foundation, that is Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, which is a grant-making not-for-profit organization that provides funding to the social sector organizations focused on health, entrepreneurship, environment, and leadership. Through her dedication and resilience, ACT Foundation has been consecutively adjudged the Not-for-Profit of the Year at the 2018, 2019, and 2020 Sarah's CSR Awards. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Having served in various leadership capacities, Osayi, who is a past chairperson of the Executive Council of Women in Management, Business and Public Service, WIMBIZ, sits on several boards across the nation and is extremely passionate about women, youth empowerment, equality, and creating a positive social impact in our world. Osayi, thank you for agreeing to be unplugged with us today. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I don't know if I should call you Auntie Julia or now or Mrs. Jackson. I'm a bit confused.
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Okay. Thank you.
We've had some people who've come in and called me, you know, mommy, and like, okay.
But that's the beauty of life.
That's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of life. So what we do on Unplugged typically is to talk to growing businesses. Now, typically we've looked at the for-profit sector, but now we're looking at the not-for-profit sector because we realize there's a lot of, misunderstandings, misconceptions about how to run the not-for-profit sector and how it is run indeed. So we've talked to someone from Calabar, not-for-profit sector, focused on educational support. We've spoken to someone from Port Harcourt who's focused on supporting children with neurodiversities and children on the autism spectrum. Okay. We've also, we spoke last week to somebody who uses art for advocacy for children. They call it youth. Let's call them youth. I don't think they're street children, but they call them the Streets Youth Foundation. you know. So now we're trying to wrap it up and just say, I'd just like to ask right off the bat, you've had private sector experience, haven't you?
Yes, I worked at a bank.
Okay. Now, how did that affect or influence your approach to working in not-for-profits? What did you get from there?
I think for me, and everyone is different. I mean, I worked at a bank then that was run by Mr. Foladiola and Tayo. So, you know, everything that you learned, I mean, the integrity, excellence, you know, everything was like, and it did really help me and made me realize that working could be fun, but also you could do it with everything that you had, because when they walked in every morning, they came in with everything. And if you came in with 30%, you just had to take up the notch a few times and say, okay, I need to be at par with how they were feeling and what they were doing. And the passion of us wanting to change the banking industry at that time. So that really, really helped. And then, of course, after that, I went off to do my master's and thought I was going to come back into the private sector. And I now worked for a nonprofit while I was in school, and that completely changed the way I saw things and my life, and why I went into this sector at that time. So it did help, but you know, everybody's different, and for me, I just picked the very good in it, and I must say it has helped me over the last few years. And I don't think much has changed from when I started till now. I've just evolved and changed and become better than when I started off, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I've found is that when people have not worked before and have not worked in certain environments, going into and this is one of the myths or the misconceptions about not-for-profits. It's like you go in there when you don't have anything else to do. You know. Yeah, that's one of the things. I hear that a lot. Yes.
I hear that a lot, but it's not true. It's not true, Auntie Julia. Auntie Julia, I mean, the non-profit sector, even if it's called the tech sector, it's a very, it's a business. And anyone that has worked with me will tell you, I look at it as a business. I run it like we're making a profit. We're running it exactly like a business. Covenant, everything is very, very precise. And like a business, if you want to fail, you do it wrong from the beginning. And if you want to succeed, you do it right from the beginning. So even before we started Arts Foundation, and this was months, it took me almost a whole year to get it started. Everything was in place. I mean, the governance structure, HR structure, every single thing. From the very first year I started, my accounts were audited by the KPMG. And you know, it's the way it's supposed to be run. And a lot of people come in, yes, they have a passion to solve children's issues or maternal health and all that. They are very passionate about it, but with no business sense or not understanding that it must be run like a business. I tell you, passion alone cannot carry you. It can make you start the foundation or start the NGO or start the nonprofit, but it doesn't take you past a certain level. How do you sustain it? Sustaining it requires you to realize that it's a business and that's the way it must be run.
I really wish you could, well, we will do a soundbite of this because this is the issue, you know, passion alone. There are many things that people are passionate about, but I don't think that there are many that they need to be engaged in running a business around that passion necessarily. Like, I'm passionate about women. I don't know if I want to run a shelter for women.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Yes. You know, that's why I think that's a misconception that when people don't know what else to do, they just say they're running a not-for-profit. Yes.
Yeah, let me just go run a foundation. Yes. Or my daddy died, let's start a foundation. And then I can run it so that I can, you know, because my daddy loved children, let me do something. And it's just not enough. It's a sector and it's an industry on its own. People have gone to school, they've studied for this. I mean, I get trainings every year. I was in Stanford beginning of this year, doing a training on sustainability, which took me 6 months to do. So it's a continuous process. And the same way anything else is, the flexibility of life and things are evolving. It's the same way the sector is evolving as well. And you have to be on top of things. Not everybody can afford to definitely go to Stanford, but there's so many trainings out there. But you have to consciously say to yourself, what do I improve? What do I do better? And how do I continuously build this organization that in my work and be sustained even if I'm not here? And that's what we forget. We just feel to ourselves that we start it, we keep on getting grants. But if these grants ease up, what happens to you? What happens to the organization that you have put a whole 10 years into? And I'm even talking for people that have passion for it. Talking for people that are just doing it because I'm just waiting for the next job come in, and they're waiting for that to happen. So we must realize that passion is great, but you must do things in a proper fashion as well.
I wonder, do people kind of mix up not-for-profit with charity? Is it the same thing exactly?
It's not the same. It's not the same. Non-for-profits, non-governmental organizations, those are the same. They're organizations that have been set up to achieve a certain goal. But when you're talking about charities are mostly, you want to give something out. I'm going to do something, a charitable organization, or I want to be giving close to it. And sometimes charities are not even registered. Non-profit NGOs, they are registered. And you must go through the process of registration as an NGO or as a non-profit. So all those things are important. You must have a governance structure. Now you must even get a license from EFCC.
Absolutely.
All those things are now, yes, exactly. I can't remember, the name just slipped up from my head now, but to come back. All those things are necessary for you to do. And there must be a strategy in place. You must have a mission. You must know what you are doing, because the truth about it is that, Julia, if you don't understand where you're going to, and the wind blows and you just move in a certain direction, especially like in the last 2 years, where we've had the issue with the pandemic. I mean, if you are doing something that had to do with maternal health, I just felt to yourself, pandemic has started. Let me just move to pandemic because I have a passion for women, and let me just help the women that are dealing with the pandemic. No, you're in a business. You don't just jump from one thing to the other. You focus on it. If the pandemic comes, you begin to say, okay, what do we do different to sustain ourselves through these issues that we're dealing with? And you still focus on maternal health. You might add a few things to it, but you don't just change your mind. And those are the things that an NGO, if there's a governance structure, you must follow a process of working and making it survive even after you. And those are the things I tell people that, I mean, charities are great and everyone is needed for the different things. The private sector, governments, non-profits are all needed. Charities are also needed. We worked with a lot of charities during the pandemic because there were some communities we were not able to go to. And there were some charitable organizations that were in the community that were helping the women, giving out food and all that. So when we decided to do food, we had to go to those charities to help us because, we couldn't get everywhere at that time. And so they are necessary as well, but you must realize that they're all different and then you decide where you want to find yourself in.
So it's extremely important to know your why.
Your why.
Yes, you must know your why. Okay. Now, I've met, in talking to people in the sector, I mean, it's a sector I've flirted with briefly, but I think I'm purely a for-profit person,
It's not easy. This sector is not easy.
It's not easy, it's not easy at all, But in talking to people, I find out that where it all kind of centers around them. And that's where I have an issue. They don't know how to set up a board. They start with the board of their family, husband, wife, child, and, Julia and sons and husband, and everybody, and father and everybody. Yes, because of family. And there's nothing wrong with the family, having a family foundation. Nothing wrong about that. But having a governance structure, what does a governance structure really look like?
One of the things I tell people I work with is that they must understand that when someone like me, that is a grant giver, is looking at your governance structure, I'm thinking of some specific things. I'm looking at, first of all, who are they? Who are they And I'm very wary of relatives, and nothing wrong with it, but I'm just wary of it because I feel that you need people that you're accountable to. And a lot of times, if you put an auntie that doesn't even come to meetings, you're not accountable to that person. So I always suggest that you find people that you're accountable to first, you have a lot of respect for, that can tell you the truth, and be able to also come into the meetings. That might have a passion for what you're doing. If you're dealing with cancer, for example, breast cancer, they must have a passion for cancer. They must have a passion for health in the first place. Because if you talk in the meeting, you'll be going above them, they don't have an interest. So those things are important. And then when you begin to structure your foundation or your NGO to begin to get debt financing or grants, these things are even more important because a lot of times people will not give you funding if they think it's a family-run business, and they get a bit skeptical about it because grants are they're money we give that we're not expecting a return in terms of money. And these are people's investments as well. And that's why I try to make people understand that I'm not giving you free money. It's investments that somebody else has made, and they are looking for a return on investment. It might not be me collecting the money back from you, but return on investment in terms of impact, in terms of number of people you've reached, in terms of making sure the community is enjoying the money that they've given to you to go and do those programs. So we also want to make sure that you have people on the board that are asking you the right questions and are also very passionate about what you're doing as well. And I even come to meetings. So when I interview my grantees, I ask them, okay, so you have a board, how many times do you have a meeting? Oh, I had a meeting 3 years ago. It's not possible. I always tell you, go back and do your homework. Go and change the board or get the board back involved. And especially as founders, until I've realized that a lot of NGO founders, we're in a place where we almost feel as if this is our baby, I want to take control of everything. But I tell them a lot of times, you can never know everything, it's impossible. And that's why you have to have a great board that can lead you and direct you and open your mind to see things that you might not just see. And we know how this thing helps as well, you know. Even if you are very smart, you're sharp, like me, I promise you, 60% of what I do at Act Foundation is because of the direction that my board gives me, because I have a strong board and they understand how this thing should work. And I've been in the sector very long, and I know the NGO sector, but some things they say, and I'm like, yeah, gosh, I didn't think about it that way. So it's really, really helpful when you constitute a strong board. And if you started off wrongly, nothing wrong with it. Sometimes we pick who is closest to us at that particular time. Yeah. But when you begin to ask for money, investments into your foundation, your NGO, then you need to go and think about it properly and look at the people and say, who else can I bring in, or who can I take out, and who else can I bring in that can bring value to the organization as we are now. And we're moving to a next level. I need people that can give me value. That's what you begin to look at.
Now, it's a bit awkward having to walk back an invitation that you'd given to somebody to be on the board. Have you ever had to counsel someone, hold someone's hand through that process?
That's, you invite someone to the board and you're asking the person to leave?
Yeah, maybe one of your grantees or would-be grantees.
Yeah, I've done it before. I don't want to go too far. I've done it before. I mean, I had one of the organizations I worked with, I had a board member that was a great person, but just wasn't the right fit for us. And what I did at that time was I talked to the chairman of the organization, who I wanted to keep. And I explained to him, I just don't think this person is the right fit. Either you speak to him or I speak to him. Of course, the chairman said, Alile, you go and speak to him yourself. And I came from a point of view in talking about the future of the organization, where we wanted to go and how far he has helped us to get to this position. And that we're looking for someone, and I even asked him if he had any suggestions to give me of someone that had this kind of capacity. And he was like, if you're looking for this kind of people, these are the 3 names I think should go. He himself, afterwards, I said, Osayi, I'm not going to be of any benefit to you in the next few years. I don't even attend meetings. And of course, I'd taken the sheet of attendance And I'd noticed that, I mean, he by himself had noticed that he had not. So I mentioned that I was going to all the board members to talk to them about the future of the organization. And I was with him, and this is what it was. He hadn't come to 6 meetings in how many years? And we wanted to move to, and he was consciously saying, look, this is not going to work. And I mean, you know how to direct the answer to the question to the answer you're looking for. And I mean, he's one of my closest pals till today, in terms of if I have any issues, I go to him. Because he was strong as a board member, but did not understand the business of the nonprofit world. And I think because of that, he kept on not wanting to come to the meetings because he didn't think it was bringing value. So that has happened. Then I also have someone else that had their uncle on the board, which was a father's brother. And how do you tell your uncle to leave your board? And I just told him the best thing to do, because this is family, you don't want to create anything with family. Explain to him that you're getting a grant from an organization and they're asking that they don't want any family member to be on the board, which can be true. And it's true sometimes of grant organizations. And he was like, okay, that works. And why should they have 2 people with the same name? And he explained that he's an uncle. I said, yeah, tell him that we need this money and I can't leave because I'm the CEO and I'm funding the organization. I started it. And you're the only one that is also bear my name. And just at this season, let us try and get ourselves organized. Well, thank him for what he has done. And I sent a very nice gifts to him and the wife, one for him, one for the wife, because it's family. I know with family, you have to be very careful.
Very.
And then, so everything, emotional intelligence comes into play, Auntie Julia. Everybody is different, but I'm just giving examples of what I have seen and I've witnessed. And I mean, of course, you have some bad board members you have to get rid of. And I've gotten rid of some of them. I mean, the most important thing is the organization. Individuals don't come into play. And that's what I say wherever I go. If the boards I sit on, I always tell them, once I'm of no value, tell me, I'll leave. Because sometimes every organization has a season. And that particular season, you might have been great for that season, but the next season they're not the best person for it. And let me know, and I'll be very willing to step down and let somebody else that's stronger than me come, especially if I don't have any shares in the business. What am I doing there?
Exactly. Exactly. So we've spoken to someone that said it's very important to belong to communities. So let's say you're somewhere in Delta State, somewhere in Calabar, River State, somewhere in Bayelsa, and you've started this not-for-profit, and you have, let's say, a good governance structure and everything. How do you get access to communities that can help you? I mean, for instance, today, someone in the not-for-profit sector sent me a message which, well, she wanted an endorsement. And I endorsed her. I gave her an endorsement because I felt that she would be deserving of what she asked for. Yeah. And then I remembered somebody else and I asked her, I sent her a snapshot, and asked her, are you aware of this? And she's just totally unaware. Is there any central portal that you can go to get an information, or do you just have to keep trolling for information?
Yeah. And Julia, especially on this side of the world, information is really, really like all over the place, very difficult to get. And I think also with SMEs, you find the same issues that we're dealing with. And of course, also with states. You go to Lagos State, it's a bit easier. You go to Kaduna, it's more difficult. Go to another state. So, I mean, I was with a grantee in Abuja on Thursday, and she works in Nasarawa. And she was telling us that the only good thing is that she's part of our network. There are things that she had never heard before in her life. So it has helped her a lot. So it does help. So my advice for someone that maybe hasn't gotten a grant with my own foundation, because of the grantees, and we keep them in a bubble. So we kind of send a lot of things because of where we are now, people send all sorts of things. So we even send them opportunities for grants, trainings. I mean, we are constantly training and they're constantly online. We do free trainings for nonprofits. So, and it's not grantees. So I would suggest that they follow some of these organizations, including mine, because when something comes up, and it's free trainings, and we do great trainings, and we also support enterprise LBS as well to do trainings for NGOs, and it's at a minimal cost. So I always tell people, look for all those things, try and get yourself. So even if whatever state you are in, the NGO training at LBS is practically free because it's supported. Then we have another one we're supporting, it's called the environment, the one for the environment as well, which is we do with LBS. Then go online, click on Instagram on our page. Every training we do that is free is all there. So you can also be part of the network. Once you do that, you join one, everything that we have, we kind of send it to you. There's some things that we send only to our grantees, but a lot of those things are sent out. Then you have organizations like Donors for Africa as well. I mean, she's just consciously only for nonprofits. And she has a small group of a network, and she's also growing. So quite a number of people send things to her as well. Don't work in isolation. There are quite a few people out there that are doing good work. Get involved with them, know what they are doing, and begin to ask questions. And at least with Donors of Africa, what I know for certain is that because she has a lot of new organizations started, they ask all sorts of questions. And there are people online there that also know these things and they're quickly asking. So when grants come out, she posts them because they send it directly to her. It's very, very difficult. Even me that have been in the sector for so many years, and I can tell you, some things are happening and I'm thinking, why didn't I hear about that? So I'm constantly, trying to be in the network, trying to know what's going on. I have a strong group of women CEOs that are in the nonprofit world that I talk to as well. So if anything comes out, we post it out there. And we move past the place where we feel it's a competition. If anybody gets it, anybody gets it, so everybody's kind of working to make sure that the sector itself begins to build. And that's another problem altogether. So a few people have decided that we need to build the sector. So we are way past where people think to themselves, you can just jump in at any time. And that's a bit difficult, but we do try it. But there's another organization called NNNGO. I'm sure if you Google it, NNNGO. It has all the NGOs in Nigeria under it. No matter how small you are, there are different levels to basic membership. Then there's when you come honorary member and all that. So I also advise that they join it. I mean, you have to pay a token, but it's better than just sitting in isolation and not knowing what's going on. And any NGO, I promise you, has been even of good help to me. Talk less of people that I really need and are starting from scratch. And just build yourself. And I was talking about even before when we started the conversation, I'm constantly learning, wanting to know and asking questions and wanting to know organizations that have gone ahead of me, what they're doing, why they're having challenges, what's going wrong. And I always start from the question of challenges because I feel that success is easy. Challenges for me are what I can avoid. So, I mean, every time I have a meeting with any NGO, any founder, I'm always asking, what have you dealt with that you can talk to me about that I can avoid? And I learned a lot from that because they say, this thing really hit me hard. And I'm thinking to myself, I have to stay away from that. We're trying to get some certification now. And it's not necessary in Nigeria, but I've been hearing a lot of NGOs talking about it. And I'm thinking to myself, let me just get it just in case. I don't need it here. Yeah, but you never know. And it might take me a long time to get it, but let's just continue to do it. And then another thing we did last year, which took us 3.5 years to get, was we got ourselves on the UN platform. I mean, it takes normally 3.5 years. I just can't remember, but there's a sector in the UN for NGOs in different countries. So you now become like a stakeholder to them. So anything that they're doing that affects nonprofits, they invite you to the table. Anything that has to do, so, and any NGO can apply for it. Of course, you have to get their ticks. But you see, with those things, Auntie Julia, what I always tell NGOs, go and check, then see all the criteria. If you will have 2 out of 15, okay, these are the other 12 I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I know that it was quite a while to apply, to do everything, but now we've gotten it, which is great, So all those things, think ahead. What are people doing? Why, even if it's a small non-profit now, what do I need to sustain myself going further? And those are things that we have to think about as well.
So this is really, okay, let me go to my comfort zone, which is branding. This is all about positioning, creating and positioning your brand intentionally from the beginning, really.
Yes, it is. It is. Because, Auntie, we're an organization, we're a brand as well. You're an organization that must understand, and that's not even my core competence, but it's one of the things I've pushed, even with my staff, when you see them, when they talk, I tell them that we must speak and do things like private sector. We must understand that this is the way it is. And then so that people don't always think that we're coming begging, cup in hand, where things are really bad. Because it's how they see you, that's the way they're going to address you. And so from the beginning, and that's why I constantly learn as well. From the beginning, I always say that we have to understand who is out there, who are they. Let them, if they come to Nigeria today, and I mean, we're entering to our 5th year. And I mean, no NGO, international NGO that is coming to Nigeria, they must come and see us, know what's going on. Because we're a sector that has dealt with 100 organizations across Nigeria already. And so we've done quite a bit. But how do I put myself out there? I put myself out there as an NGO that is worth speaking with, regardless of what, I mean, they are bigger and better, but we're also players especially in Nigeria, in Africa. So I don't want people to take that out of, and so when they come, yes, I need your help, but I am also bringing value. So it's a mutual beneficial relationship. And once you look at it that way, you must realize that that's why you must bring something to the table. And they must realize that you are also important to that table. And once that happens, it makes you more comfortable. You might not get that grant, but at the end of the day, people will speak about what you are doing and how you are doing it. And they can see that everything is open. Integrity is, because money is important. So you have to be very careful how you deal with it as well.
Oh, yes, it is. Important. Oh, yes, it is. I mean, I was speaking to a friend earlier today, and she's in America, and she is in the not-for-profit sector. And she was talking about the people on the board, and mostly retired, and but very wealthy.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you may have all the good ideas, but money at the bottom of it money is important.
It's all about the Benjamins.
It's about the Benjamins.
Money speaks and opens the door, man. And it's not easy, but we just have to keep on pushing. We can't stop.
So to Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, you work in health, entrepreneurship, environment, and leadership. And I know the information is out there, guys. Like I said, Google Osayi Alile, and also check the website for ACT Foundation. It's just type ACT Foundation, you'll see it. But how many grant cycles do you have in a year? And how do people apply?
We have one grant cycle.
Okay.
So the next one, we're about to start one, and we're announcing people in the next few weeks. And then we have, then we start again in October. So it's almost like 2 in the same year, because the programs are still running while we're starting the next one. And if you follow everything, go on our website, Instagram page, Twitter, LinkedIn, you will find whenever we do the call. The call lasts for a whole month. And once that call is done, people send their proposals in, then we look at it. And of course, sometimes people send for something that doesn't relate to what we are doing. So everything is actually done online. So we don't even, something sieves everything. We have an app that sieves everything in the first instance. Then we have a committee that looks through all the grant proposals, the first phase of it. So like last year, we had over almost 2,000 proposals. And then we sieve it down to about maybe 300. And then we have a committee, which a lot of consultants, over 40 of them. And at this time, I must say, a lot of people don't understand it. We at ACT do not see anything at all. Because we've worked with a lot of organizations over the years. So we try to be very far away from the process as much as possible. So it's very open. And then the committee looks through the whole thing and picks, I think, about 50, because we only work with about 20 to 30 organizations per year. So once they look at that and they pick the 50, then we do interviews of all the 50 organizations. Before, people used to have to come here to do the interviews, but of course now with Zoom, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
But I'm also very careful about that, yeah, because I always tend to tell people that I'm a seeing person, I'm a touchy feel. But we also send people, if there are new organizations we've never heard about, we can't find them. We have people in different states. We send people to go and look at them, see what's going on. Or if I look at the board, I know someone I know we can call. But so we have almost 3 stages to that. Then we now decide the 30 that we take to the board. We can't go ahead with any organization without board approval as well. So there's so many stages that we have to pass through to get the 25 people or the 30 people that we work with. And but I tell people that it's a process that is very open and very clear. And but everything is online. So if you go to our website and Google Act Foundation, you'll find all the processes, what we're looking for, what you need to have, the criteria for even applying for the grant in the first place. It's very, very clear. It's not difficult at all. And even in the year, we have some open sessions where we have talking about the grant process, and anybody can ask any question, because by that time, nobody has applied. So it's an open forum where you can ask anything you want. And so those are the things that we do to make it a bit easier for you to apply for the grants circle, but it's going to be out again in October.
So these open sessions are free to the public, and they're publicized.
Anybody can join. Anybody can join it. Yeah.
So how can a not-for-profit scale? I mean, people talk about scale, and scaling to me means so many things. I mean, you can go deep, horizontal, you can go vertical, you know, okay, that's horizontal, you can go vertical, you know, but what does scaling mean to you? Those are some of the buzzwords that people talk about, scaling. What does scaling mean to you?
Let me start from this point. You have to know you're ready to scale first. you have to have your foundation strong. I tell people that you can't do a 5-story building on a foundation that is built for a bungalow. So if you don't have things that sets first, scaling is a waste of time. And just continue to do what you're doing in the small way you're doing it and enjoy the benefits from it till you're ready. Scaling, as you said, horizontal, vertical, people can decide that they want to increase the number of places they're going to. We have some organizations that came to us working in 2 states. Now they're working in 15 states. They've scaled. And they've scaled significantly. But we could tell that they were ready to scale after they've done they've tried it with 2, tried it with 4, tried it with 6, the competence of the staff as well. Because if you are teaching a curriculum, you need to know that anybody can teach it in Zamfara, or they can teach it in River State or something like that. So you must be ready for it. And then, of course, you have to know that you have funding to be able to scale as well. And you must be careful about funding, because you can get a 1-year grant or a 3-year grant, and your scaling is for the next 10 years.
Absolutely.
And you don't have the capacity when that grant disappears. So that's where sustainability comes into play as well. Is your organization sustainable? And can you leave even when a grant organization says they're not funding you in the next year? Because these things do occur. Because for us now, when the pandemic started, we had a certain amount of money that had been put aside for us. Once the pandemic started, the money was slashed completely into half. And thank God we're at a point where we had not told the organizations that we're going to fund them. We're just blessed that we haven't told them. So we had to cut a lot of things off and reduce. But I built my organization to have an endowment from the very first year. So there were some things I was able to do because I have the interest from the endowment. So I was able to do a few things, and I didn't really change. I didn't lose any staff because I was able to sustain the organization through the pandemic based on that. So all these are things that you have to think about. Then you can scale going to other organizations, of course, bringing new ideas. If you are doing training for just a certain type of people, you can increase it. Or some people that were into health, they say, okay, we go to this community. We also know that they need financial literacy as well. So that's also scaling, just changing the way you're doing things, but you have not gone away from your core competence. But you must be ready for this because it can backfire. So you have to make sure that your track record, your internal audits, controls are in place, because you're based in Lagos and you're scaling in Nasarawa. Who is watching what's going on there? So there must be some things in place there. And also think to yourself, what's the impact of what I'm doing? Is there an impact even in the scaling I'm doing? If there's no impact, why are you doing it? There's no point. You just want to tell people that I'm in 20 states. There's no point to do that. Like Art Foundation is an indigenous grant makers for Africa, starting from Nigeria. But when I started, we started only in Nigeria. Funding was only 15. And yes, we've pushed very fast, but it's also because I know that the foundation is strong as well. So now we're in 5 African countries. We're practically in every state in Nigeria doing all our programs. We have an NGO in every state doing programs there. But it's taking us a bit of time to get there. Every year I increase it slightly by one African country, one other NGO. I'm thinking to myself, can we do this? Are we doing this? How is this sustainable in the long term? So those are the things we have to ask ourselves when we're talking about scaling, sustainability, online presence. Media is also, branding is important because your brand can be diffused. You go somewhere, I mean, I've gone to an event before and I saw my logo, I almost fell off the chair. I almost died. It was a completely different logo with a different color. I refused to stand in front of the thing they had at the back. I just refused to do it. And so I'm now very, very careful. I have my board. I know the colors, the dimensions. We send it to, as soon as you become our grantee, we send it to you. So you must know how and when to use our logo, how you talk about it. Yes, and all those things are important until you know these things now.
I know.
Even if they're not, my core competence, I realize that it's important. I don't want you to go and dilute my logo in another country, in another state. And internal controls, as I mentioned, is also very important. Financial, your track record, your team, and of course, as we had mentioned before, board. And if you have all those things in place, then you can say, okay, how do we grow? Do I grow by 10%, 5%? What do I do? One state by state, and all those things are really dependent on the team and what they think is important at that particular time. And if it's not your mission to scale, don't let anybody force you to do what is not what you had planned to do in the first place. Don't allow pressure. A lot of times people go to grantees and grantees change the whole, we don't want you to do that. Can you start doing that? And I'm like, no, that's not what we're called to do. And I've refused a lot of money based on that before, because that's not what we're called to do. How do I measure what you are giving me money for? Because it's not my core competence. We're not supposed to be doing that. We do 4 things, and those 4 things are what we do. And that's what we're good at. And that's what the board has sent me to do. So I have to be careful as well.
Well, are you likely to expand these 4 areas, or this is what we are staying with?
For now, this is what we're staying with. For now, this is what we're going to be doing for the next few years.
So, as we round up, what I'd like to ask is, I'm having trouble reading my wonderful handwriting. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, I can read it now. So, is it possible also, and is it advisable to scale back? Because when we talk scale, it's usually in one direction. Can you scale back?
Of course.
Because I do know a not-for-profit that works with children, providing educational resources. They also work on gender-based violence. They work on empowerment. I really don't like that word, but well, they work on empowerment, and they work on about 3 or 4 areas. I think with street children as well. And I feel it's a stretch. But then the people will tell you, oh, it's passion is what I'm passionate about. So is it possible to advise them to scale back? Osayi, I think you've frozen, or I have frozen. No, I'm here. I think you've frozen. Okay, Osayi will be joining us again very shortly. But, we're talking about the possibility of not-for-profit scaling back. You know, it's not always scaling, it's not always in one direction, that you're taking on more and more, but also sometimes you have to come back and see, maybe I am overextended. That can be the issue sometimes, you know. So what else did you ask us to ask? You asked us, how can you leverage on your board, on access, on passion and technology? She's told us a lot about how you can leverage on passion, you know, because what you are so passionate about is something that you would do, even if getting the funds would be difficult. And she's also told us a lot about funding. She talked about making sure your internal controls are in place, making sure that your audit is done, ensuring that you have an endowment. And that's really essentially at the very basic level, it's keeping some money aside so that when you do have tough times, and every business does have a tough time, you can fall on that money for a while, especially if you don't have a grant or you don't have donors. There's this thing called donor fatigue that I believe all of you in the not-for-profit sector know about. And that's at certain points, people get tired of reading. I mean, the CEO requests for support and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that again. I've done it and I'm fatigued, I'm tired with doing this. Some other people sell merchandise, and that's another way they can raise funds, you know, for all the good work they do. I'm still trying to see if you can get Osayi back. Is there any way we can get Osayi? Okay. I'm sure she's trying to come back, but I know she's, just to reiterate, okay, she's back. She's back. Just to reiterate while she's joining us, passion alone. No problem, no problem. This is something that we unfortunately are used to in this part of the world. It's not something I like being used to, but I was telling people about the issues of being financially strong, which you have emphasized, and yeah, and also the endowment. It sounds like such a big word, but it's just keeping some money aside. Keeping some money aside, very different from what you use for your daily operations, really.
The endowment, what? I didn't hear that part.
Okay, I was telling about endowment. I was talking about the endowment, the financial side of things. And I said, endowment doesn't necessarily, it can be a big sum of money, but it can also be, of course, keeping some money aside.
Small amount. Yes. It doesn't have to be, I tell people you can start off with anything, and you can even insist with the donors that you are building an endowment and there's a certain percentage you must take from it. And then you and the donor can agree on an amount, because everything is sustainable anyway. And so if you say, well, we're keeping aside 2% for just in case for the future we don't touch it, this is an agreement on our endowment. As long as you are very ethical about it and you're very clear, people are very comfortable with it and they don't mind you doing that.
Okay. Then the other thing I would like you to speak on is the importance of having a CFO, a strong CFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand from the nonprofit world, it can be a bit difficult because a lot of us cannot afford a strong CFO that has an ICANN background or anything like that. So you find out that we always look for maybe someone that has a 1 year, 2 year experience kind of thing. But I always suggest people that even if you bring that person in, have a consultant on the side that is not working with you all the time, but at least to a certain point, and they can help you to look at the books or direct you. And sometimes I know organizations that have financial financial experts on the side, and they're not being paid. That's their own contribution to you. So they tell you that every month I'll send somebody in, at least put it in your documents that we're giving you a certain amount of money. And then so you don't have to pay for this particular thing. And then of course, as you grow, you begin to look for someone that's that you will pay and that will be full-time in your office. So I do understand that it's expensive, but I also suggest that look for someone that you know that is strong in this, that can help you on the side, and you give them that kudos as a volunteer of the organization. And then you can have someone that maybe is 1 year, 2 years that the person can work with. But you need to be very careful with money, and we've mentioned it before, because any small stint of misappropriation by any donor, the sector you think is big will be so small that people become very, very careful, and they're afraid of what you're going to do. So just be careful that you don't make that mistake. Of course, if something happens and you make a mistake, I've had grantees come to me and say, oh my goodness, we're not supposed to spend up to this. We did this and we spent more than we were supposed to. We just noticed, and this is an issue we are having. And by the time I look at the books, I realized that it was a mistake. I'm like, no problem. Let's see how we can turn around. I can give some of that money back to you. And some grantees have come to me. We asked for a certain amount of money. We spent less than it. So we have 1.5 million left, but we have a need for computers in the organization. And we have said, okay, that's fine because it's their money. But as long as they tell us what is spent on, then it's fine. And they've sent us a letter. So all these things are things that, depending on who you're asking for funding. But even before you get to that point, get someone that can check your books for you all the time, that everything is in the right place. You're not like any other SME, you're not dipping your hands into the foundation's money. Family is not, you're not using it for family functions and stuff like that. Like any other SME, that's the only way you'll be able to sustain it in the long term.
Thank you, Osayi. Finally, could you speak about donor fatigue and how to get over that hump?
But we just had that conversation this morning in my team because we're tired of some organizations. I know that they're going to watch and I say, I hope it's not me, Osayi. And donor fatigue can come in both ways. It can come at a point where people are actually tired. Donors, they get tired. It's like going to meet the same family member for money all the time. After a while, the person gets tired. It's the same thing. And especially if you're not doing and you're not adding value as much as they want, they get frustrated. And we do have very minimal organizations that do a lot of work, that work with mostly small NGOs in Nigeria. Of course, the DFIDs, the UN, those are big ones. They're not going to work. They're not working with community-based NGOs and mostly. So the smaller ones, they're not many. So you have to continuously reinvent yourself. You have to continuously be in their faces. And, a lot of times people collect this funding and then disappear. And they come back next year and ask me for the same funding and disappear. It's almost like you can't just disappear with money now. And they just be sending, there's no relationship, no network. They're not asking us how we are doing. They're not sending us information and all that. And then you come and then you say that they're not answering you. We won't answer now because we are not friends. And people give money to people they consider as friends. I know friendship in terms of we talk all the time, but friendship in terms of Art Foundation and Julia Cool Foundation are friends, not personal. That you want, yes, you want my organization to do better. Or I went somewhere and someone was talking about funding and I just funded them. And they were mentioning that no, Nigerian organizations don't fund. I got up and stood up and said, no, we funded you. I funded you. So why are you telling us we don't fund? So, friendship is about also speaking good about the organization you're getting something from, also making sure people that know that they're doing the right stuff. If you don't do that, they get tired. And donors are tired because we're funding, only a few organizations are funding the whole nation. And there are not many. And you don't have that many indigenous grant-making organizations, even in Nigeria today. I can count them with one hand. So people they're tired. And the problem is not going away as well as Julia. With the pandemic, a lot of the issues that we had got worse maternal issues got worse, domestic violence got worse, cancer issues, because we were not able to go and get regular treatment for these things. So it's almost like I get this beginning of this year, I was a bit frustrated. It was as if we're starting all over again. The numbers were getting worse than it was a few years ago. And it can be very frustrating because you just almost feel as if you're throwing money into a deep hole and you can't even see it doing anything. So that's where the frustration and the donor fatigue comes into play. And so the value that the organization, the NGO brings in and the impact of what they are doing makes us feel that we want to do more. And it allows me to go back to my own board and my investors to say, okay, we need to do more because we can see the reason for doing more. So it's always a two-sided approach as well. Yeah.
So thank you very much. You've given us so much to chew on. I'm very sure, even if we don't get to talk with you again, I'm sure I'll be asking you questions behind the scenes, because there are quite a few people who come and ask, how can I access this? Can I do this? So guys, go on the Axe Foundation website. You'll see all the criteria there and then start working your way towards it. I mean, it's a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yes, not a one day. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Osayi, thank you very much. It's really been
Thank you,
great.
Julia, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
all right.
Till next
Bye,
time.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.